Since we're approaching the beginning of the final NBA season of this decade, it's time we take a look back at the last 10 years as a whole. A lot has happened since 2010, and the league as a whole has changed a ton as well. For today's video, though, we'll be focusing specifically on the NBA drafts from this last decade, and more specifically, the first player selected in each one of them. We're going to be taking each of these number 1 overall picks from the 2010s and ranking them, and because how obviously some players have played longer than others on this list, I'm going to be taking a good balance of actual production and potential to not only produce at a high level individually, but also help elevate their teams. Before we start though, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting at the bottom and making our way up to the top, at number 10, taking the crown for worst number 1 pick of the decade, goes to Anthony Bennett by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2013. This pick didn't make a shred of sense at the time, and things only got worse when he actually stepped foot on the court. His rookie year got off to a slower start than any other number 1 pick in history, and it never really picked up over time. He wasn't even seen as someone in contention for the number 1 pick by any draft analysts, and any fan that says they thought he was the best player in the draft at the time is just a liar. He always seemed to be overweight and out of shape, could never consistently break into any team's rotation, and played on 4 different teams in his 4-year career, because every team he was on gave up on him after just 1 year. He's a career 4 points per game player, and hasn't actually played an NBA game since 2017, as he spent the last few years in the G League. There's a legitimate argument to be made that he might be the biggest bust in NBA history, and while it looks like the Rockets are giving him a second chance this year, he has a long way to go to change the narrative around him. Next up, at number 9 on this list, we have Markelle Fultz, who was taken by the Philadelphia 76ers in 2017. Unlike Bennett, Fultz actually was seen as an almost unanimous top prospect in the draft that year, which is why the Sixers felt the need to trade up to get him. At Washington, he showed off a complete offensive package, being able to score at a high level from all 3 levels, create for others, and play solid defense. However, his NBA career to this point has been one of the weirdest things to ever happen in sports, as he lost all ability to shoot jump shots and has barely played at all through 2 seasons. He apparently has a shoulder injury that he's been trying to recover from all this time, but his future is still completely up in the air, and there's no telling whether or not he'll actually be able to turn things around. The Sixers sent him to the Magic at the trade deadline last year, so maybe a change of scenery will be good for him, but ultimately, he still belongs near the bottom of this list after everything that's happened. Next up, at number 8, we have Andrew Wiggins, who was taken by the Cleveland Cavaliers and then traded to the Timberwolves in 2014. Out of everyone on this list, it's arguable that Wiggins had the most hype around himself as a prospect than anyone else. However, through 5 seasons, he hasn't quite been the franchise pillar many expected him to be. On paper, he's put up decent numbers, having scored over 20 points per game twice, but the thing is that he struggles mightily across the board in almost every other aspect of the game. He's a miserable defender, a ball stopper on offense that doesn't create for others, and he ranks near the bottom of most advanced analytics, showing how little of an impact he really makes. He still has a long career ahead of him, so there's still time to improve, but compared to the other top picks on this list, he still belongs near the bottom. Next up, at number 7 on this list, we have Deandre Ayton, who was taken by the Phoenix Suns in 2018. Ayton's rookie season last year flew way under the radar because of the Luka Doncic versus Trae Young battle for the Rookie of the Year, but he too had a very strong start to his career. He's got an incredibly strong frame and is such a terrific athlete for a big man, so he uses these physical tools to his advantage. He outmuscles other bigs around the basket and is always lurking to catch a lob and throw down an alley-oop. Additionally, his face-up game showed a ton of promise in year 1, so if he continues continues to develop his mid-range jumper and maybe eventually expand that range out to the three-point line, then he could become a deadly offensive player. The one glaring concern with him, though, is his ability to defend in space and protect the rim, as he wasn't necessarily much of a shot blocker and he did struggle a bit defending pick and rolls. Overall, though, he's a tier above the first three players I mentioned and still has a very bright future ahead of him. Next up at number 6 on this list, we have Zion Williamson, who was taken first overall in this year's draft by the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, Zion obviously has all the potential in the world to be great and is definitely an electrifying player, but because of the fact that he's the one guy who hasn't actually played a game in the league yet, I didn't think it would be right to put him any higher than around the middle of the list, especially with how many other talented players are included in a list like this. Zion's athleticism and bounce for someone his size is truly remarkable, and very literally something we've never seen before. At the current moment, Zion is the second heaviest player in the league, yet he moves like a gazelle out on the court and flies high above the rim to put on a show on a nightly basis. He's going to bring a ton of excitement back to New Orleans after the somewhat depressing Anthony Davis fiasco last year, and they're going to be must-watch TV. Next up at number 5 on this list, we have Karl-Anthony Towns, who was taken by the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2015. Ever since Cat has come into the league, he's become one of the most well-rounded, highly productive, and overall talented offensive big men in the whole league. He puts up 25 a night and dominates both inside and out, making him a matchup nightmare for other big men that have to guard him. He also has shot at least 40% from 3 in each of the last 2 seasons, so being that lethal from 3, while also being very comfortable dribbling the ball and attacking the basket, is going to be a problem for years to come. What holds him back, though, is that he too struggles a bit on the defensive end of the floor, often getting lost in space and not necessarily possessing the defensive instincts to make the necessary rotations and movements, but his offensive game more than makes up for that. Next up at number 4 on this list, we have John Wall, who was taken by the Washington Wizards in 2010. Now, based on career so far, Wall would easily deserve to be top 3 on this list. However, because I tried to balance both current production and potential for the future, most of Wall's best days are likely in his past. He's suffered 2 serious injuries in the last year and is now going to miss the entire upcoming season, and there's no telling how good he'll be when he returns, especially because he'll be 30 next year. In his 9 seasons in the league so far, though, he's been pretty damn good. He's been one of the best point guards in the league as both a scorer and passer, and his blazing speed made him a blur in transition. In the playoffs, he was never able to make it past the second round, though, and ultimately, the 3 players ranked above him have either already contributed to championship contenders or have a very good chance to in the future. Next, at number 3 on this list, we have Ben Simmons, who was drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers in 2016. Simmons, through just 2 years in the league, has already become one of the most well-rounded players on both ends of the floor. He's an elite defender of multiple positions thanks to his guard-like agility and big man size, and will be in the running for all defense teams from here on out more than likely. Offensively, his combination of size, strength, and speed make him tough to stop from getting to the rim, and he's also one of the best passers in the whole league at point guard. The one glaring hole in his game right now, holding him back, is his lack of a consistent jump shot, but this summer he's shown that he has made it a priority to work on improving in that regard. So if he ever gets to a point where he's comfortable shooting from the perimeter and making them every so often, then the sky is the limit for his game. Up next at number 2 on this list, we have Kyrie Irving, who was taken by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2011. Kyrie is one of the flashiest, most fun to watch players in the league because he arguably has the best handles the league has ever seen. Not only that, but he's actually a highly efficient shooter and scorer from all 3 levels, despite the amount of difficult shots he attempts. When paired up with LeBron, he dominated as a sidekick and knocked down the championship-winning shot in 2016. 2016. His stint in Boston didn't necessarily go as well as he probably hoped it would, with last season in particular being extra disappointing, but his production through the years speaks for itself, and he still has a lot left in the tank. And finally, at number 1 on this list, we have Anthony Davis, who was taken by the New Orleans Pelicans in 2012. Davis is currently one of, if not the best big man in the NBA, and he's on pace to have a historically good career destined for the Hall of Fame. He may not have accomplished as much as many hoped he would in his time in New Orleans, as he only made the playoffs twice and won a playoff series once, but it can also be argued that the Pelicans front office never did enough to surround him with the talent necessary to contend. He's now a Los Angeles Laker, playing alongside LeBron James, and the expectations for him are higher than ever. If he can help bring home yet another championship to the Lakers franchise, he'll start to be compared to the all-time greats. But either way, he was an easy choice for first on this list. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.